Well, hello. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Happy Monday to you. It's 12 p.m. here in California, and it's time to do a little Knowledge Destroys Fear. So, it's just me today, so I'm going to do a little tutorial for you. We spent the last few tutorials, I worked on square layering and round layering. We were working with longer hair. And today I'm going to do the similar thing. I'm going to still work with longer hair, and I'm going to work with a triangular layer. So something a little bit different to round and square. I'm going to pass the phone off to Katie, and she's going to do all the questions and stuff. So what I wanted to do today, hello, welcome everyone, is I wanted to work on a longer shape, but layer it with the weight getting heavier towards the front. We've worked round layers, so that is the weight working off the front, so pushing it towards the back. And then the last KDF live that I did with you guys a couple of weeks ago, I did a square layer, so just a really nice standard clean square layer where everything was even, and we created corners in the rounds of the head shape. But today what I'd like to do is I'd like to work something triangular. Remember, there's 3 distributions of weight horizontally, and that is forwards and backwards and then even, so consistent throughout. So that is a round shape, a square shape, or a triangular shape. So horizontally we took shape. So when you pick and pull the hair out, if you were to look down on it and it's expanded form, you would see the shape getting heavier towards the front. And when the hair falls, you would see the weight descending from back to front getting heavier as well. Regardless of whatever happens with the outline, that's what the internal shape will do. So I can have an outline that gets heavier if I want to, or I can have an outline that's flat or square, or I could actually have an outline that's rounded through the front and gets heavier towards the back. But I could also do whatever I want with the distribution of the weight on the inside. So I've not done anything with this mannequin. It's a fresh mannequin, pivot point, viola, straight out of the box. So I'm going to work with what we have. I'm going to pretend that this is a client coming in and saying, I want to keep my length, and I want to do something on the inside of it. So I want a little bit of a change. Now, why would I ever choose to cut a round shape or a triangular shape or a square shape? There's always a reason why. I don't just do it because I feel like it. With this, I'm going to push the weight forward. So what that does is it's going to push the weight onto the face. So what it will do is it will close in the face, because what it's going to do, it's going to cut out some of the roundness because you're placing that weight through there. Whereas if we do round, that opens it up and exposes the face more. So that's the difference between the two. So we're going to start with triangular. I might switch it up after I've finished it and do something else on it, but we're going to go with that to start with. So first thing I'm going to do is probably just establish exactly what I want to do with the length. Let's do this over here so you can see that better. Yeah? Cool. All right, so we're playing live to Instagram today, but we're also live on YouTube. So if you want to see all the different camera angles, you can go onto my YouTube channel, Knowledge Destroys Fear, and you can watch this as well. It'll be up there, so you can watch it later if you want to as well. So, yeah. So first thing I want to do is establish a length. So I'm actually just going to start about halfway up from hairline to the first round of the head, which is the occipital ridge. That gives me enough density to see the line that I want to cut. So what I'll do is, sorry Kate, I'm just getting my water spray. You come back over here. Keep the hair super damp. What that does for you is it adds weight to the hair. So that will encourage the hair to fall into natural fall. So you're not having to, move it around all the time with your fingers. I'm going to choose to cut this more in the comb at first. And if I can't control it with the comb, that's when the last resort is to utilize your fingers to do that. So to begin with, just going to comb the hair into place. I'm stood directly in front of it, and just loosening any excessive tension throughout there. And I'm thinking like the length I want to go with is going to be about there.
I've got a couple of questions.
Wow, we got questions already on YouTube. Thank you.
So they want to know, yes, he's doing a layered cut, but what type of layers are you doing?
Well, we're not at the layers yet. I'll explain more about what kind of layer I will be doing when I get to that point, because obviously that's going to be extremely important with the result of what we're doing. Right now, just establishing my perimeter length. And then once I have this length in the back, that will actually give me the length to work through in with the layering. So right now, just establishing the length, and then we'll use the length to give us a guide for the layering afterwards. So if your client was completely satisfied with her length already, then I would be going straight into the layering. I wouldn't be bothered with doing any of this. When you cut this on a human, it's much easier because it actually sticks to the gown or the shoulder blades. With the mannequin, from here down, there is nothing. So it takes a little bit more to control that hair from moving backwards and forwards. So loosening any tension or excessive tension by tapping above the comb. And, you know, obviously once this is dried, that would be something I'm going to look at the end as well. So again now, just looking at the hair, how it naturally falls, and that's what I want it to do. I want it to look like water coming down a waterfall. I'm not going to rake through from the roots to the ends all the time. Once it's in position and it's kind of in its place, I'll go below the natural round of the head so that I'm not raking on the scalp. I'm just combing the hair that's not been cut onto the hair that's been cut. Now, if it's hard to control, I could change the side of the comb that I'm using, but I seem to be able to control it with the looser side. Again, you have to judge the hair. It's you that's doing it. So stand back, have a look, and that's going to be kind of collarbone kind of length, like around in this area through the front. So I think that's going to be okay. So now I'm just going to duplicate that on the other side. Some people like to flip-flop, one section on one side, one section on the other side, and get the balance through. I just like to work one side and then I'll do the other side so that I can stay consistent with body position and I'm not all over the place. But again, different strokes for different folks, whatever you feel comfortable with.
We have a question.
All right.
Is there a way to balance round layers on the side parting?
Yes, there is. I like how that question gets asked every single class that I do. Think about how, if you've seen me balance triangular, think about how you would do it on round. Think about round being the opposite to triangular, right? Triangular descends from back to front. Round descends from front to back. So whatever I would do in the triangular thing here, I would do the same here, right? I would use more over direction on one side than I would the other, so that the two could balance up together. It's just like the triangular. You have to actually have a feeling for it and you have to work through it and test it out and see if that works for you. So now on the other side, same thing. So if you look at my body position, I'm stood directly in front of it, but my feet are spread wide apart, and that is so that I can keep the upper part of my body upright, because that's where I need to be able to see this at eye level. So I'll bend the knees to do that so I can see exactly what's happening. You notice I don't stand too close to it. I stand back so that I can actually see what's happening with that line, whether it's doing this or this. If I get too close to it, I can't see what's past each eyeball, so I don't know if it's level or not. So don't bend at the waist, only bend at the knees, and that gives you distance so you can see what's happening. Hope you guys are enjoying this so far. Last week...
Thank you for putting this out for, like, young hairstylists.
Oh, you're very welcome. That's the whole point in why we do what we do, is so that it's accessible for everybody to watch. There's nothing better than knowing how to control the haircut. So that leads me to my next class, my next Zoom class, interactive class. I will be teaching a theory class on March the 15th. So I will be going through the entire breakdown of hair cutting, theoretically, but I'll be doing it in a much more visual way, so it'll be virtual like we're doing this, so we'll go through everything. And that's on March 15th, and you can sign up for that by clicking the link in my bio on my Instagram page.
All right, we have 2 questions.
No more questions. Just kidding, jokes.
Can you graduate long hair, or does it only work with layers?
No, you can. The question was, can you graduate long hair, or does it only work with layers? No, you can graduate long hair as well. I think what the problem is, Katie, is that most people think that graduation is one thing because they always hear this number 45 degrees, right? And they also have seen a diagram where this is categorized as 90 degrees and then this is 0. So everybody thinks that whatever you cut above this point of the head shape is layers and everything below that is graduation. That diagram is only showing you one aspect of 90 degrees. This is also 90 degrees. Right? This is 90 degrees. So it's understanding what elevation is. And if you understand that, then you'll figure out that graduation is 1 degree of elevation all the way up to 89 degrees of elevation, because 0 is one length and 90 is layering. So 0 is to keep weight, 90 is to remove. So in between that, you've got all of this access, right, or axis, right, of buildup of weight. So if you're in the lower regions of elevation, like 0 to 1 degree to 45, then you can expect the weight to sit heavier. But if you elevate slightly higher, so let's say you're in the 88, 89 degrees of elevation, you're 1 to 2 degrees away from removing weight, but you're still building. So that's why there's an external graduation and there's an internal graduation. You know, so you can actually push the weight even higher up the head than 45 degrees. Because if you bring everything to 45 degrees, the weight's never going any higher than this. It's always staying in that region. So yeah, one of the good things about the theory class that I'm going to teach is I'm going to teach all the differences between what graduation is as far as internal and external. Now, when you say length, if you're looking to achieve like putting weight in a certain place and it's sitting there up here, then obviously your foundation has to be shorter. If your foundation is already being affected by gravity and bending and being pushed down, then the putting volume up here is much harder. But definitely you can graduate longer hair.
All right, and do you ever use a chair while cutting? If not, how do you prefer getting lower to cut?
I'm not I don't really use a chair to cut hair. We don't have the stools or anything here at the factory. But if I was to sit down, this would probably be the only time I would sit down while cutting hair, and that's because I'm bringing everything to 0 degrees. How I deal with it in reality, it's been the same kind of thing since we all started to cut hair. We're taught to have our clients stand up and hold on to the back of the chair so that we can get closer to eye level with them, and so that we can do this. If they're sat in the chair, then you're literally kneeling on the ground, which you could do that as well. But that hurts. It's like you have to get one of those gardening pillows. Do you know that people use for their knees? Or get the knee things that make it comfier. All right, let's get this outline done and we can get into the layering, which is the fun part of the haircut.
All right, and while you're doing that, will the theory class be available for purchase if they can attend the day of?
It won't be available to purchase afterwards. If you purchase the theory class, you will get a recording of the class as well. So if you can't attend it live, you will get the class anyway. But I won't be offering that for sale for everybody else afterwards. So you actually have to attend the class. It's a special thing. So there's only a certain amount of spaces in the class too. So get it booked. I think for $50, it's going to be a great class as far as value is concerned. I'm really fortunate in my career to have been in positions to write curriculums for Vidal Sassoon and Paul Mitchell. So I've got a bit of a knack for it. I enjoy it. And it's been a while since I've put anything down on paper or anything like that. And usually I just teach it when I teach my knowledge destroy sphere hands-on classes. But I thought I'd offer it up due to people asking me if I was going to write a book again and if I would do some theory stuff. So, yeah, we'll go back to theory, break it down for you guys. Again, to me, it's all about learning to fly the airplane instead of hitting the autopilot button. Done.
Actually wants to know what's your holy grail, 5-inch or so, precision, shear, and why?
Wow, so question about scissors or shears, whatever you want to call them. I call them scissors. That's what I was taught. I'm English, so I should know. Just kidding. I think shear is a Dutch word, so that's where it comes from. But today I'm using my Vidal Sassoon Matsuzaki 5-inch scissors. These were the original pair of scissors that I got when I was a student at Vidal Sassoon in 1994-95 and became a teacher for Vidal Sassoon. This is what I was using. I use Mizutani scissors, Matsuzaki scissors. I love the new HB Pro scissors. Waiting for my pair in the mail, Gerard, thank you. But yeah, scissors are like shoes, you've got to try them on. So, yeah. Hope that answers your question. You over there on YouTube, sorry. Got to get the cameras down. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, I'm just doing the side show.
Cool, awesome. All right, so guys, what I've done now is I've got my outline in there. So that's already established. I don't need to come and put my outline through the sides. I can do that later. Now what I've got is I've got my outline established in the back. So now I can actually use my outline as a guide to now layer the interior of the haircut. And that will take me through into the front and the top afterwards. And I can just work the length after at the end. So no need to waste my time coming through now, because I could probably just do less at the end. All right, so now that that's in there, I've got to think about layering this now. Now, layering is a removal of weight. So if you're going to remove weight, it's going to disappear from this first, isn't it? Because you're removing weight. Where else is it going to disappear from? So whatever you do in layering is always determined by the outline. So what I want to do with that. So what I want to do is I want to actually maintain this outline, and I want to maintain the outline all the way through to the front. Now, the issue with this is there is less hair in the front than there is in the back. So if you don't do this right, you can nicely layer the back and horrifically layer the front. As in, that outline in the front just disappears, it becomes transparent, there becomes this massive hole in this area because of the ear situation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out how I can layer this without interrupting what's going on through here. Now, the key thing here is understanding head shape and understanding the density of the hairline and where the hairline is its strongest and where it is at its weakest. So if you look from back to front and you look at this hairline, you'll notice that it's its heaviest right here at this corner. And then what happens is it jumps up, comes all the way around, up around the, and then down again into the sideburns that we have, right? And then it comes back up again vertically and then shoots over a bit more horizontally again over here. So you've got to understand this terrain. So if I'm going to layer this, let me section this off. So I'm just going to section one side away. All right, so let's take a vertical section. Right now, I'm not going to cut anything. I just want to explain what's going on. Okay, so we can see that. All right. So if we pull this section straight out from the head, right, and we look at all of this, see that length right there? That's my outline length. So technically, I could use that and just chop all that weight off above it. And that would still keep this length here. But that length, okay, is coming from this hair down in this area. Well, we don't have hair in that area in the front. We have here. So that's where we have to work from, because we have this entire gap through here of no hair. So it makes no sense for me to use this as a guide, because if I use that, by the time I get around to this area, there's no guide down here. So I'll end up getting a hole in that area. So what you have to do is you have to look at this length here. See, that should not be cut, because that is your outline length. So that is actually my guide. The length of the hair at the outline, at the hairline through the front, is my guide. So what I have to do is I have to find that over here. It's really simple. This point of the head shape is actually a ridge in the head shape. So when I put the comb against the head, it follows all the way around to what's known as the occipital ridge. So guys, this round here is the same as this round here. It's on the same level. So that's the guide I need to use for me to protect my length through the front. So that's the equation, that's the science behind it, the maths, or whatever you want to call it. I have to use the same length that is at this through here. So that's going to be my guide, is the length that's at the occipital ridge. So all of that will drop away, because look, it won't reach to the length of the occipital, it drops away. So that's my guide right there. So now I have to think about, how am I going to actually cut this? How am I going to stand? How will I approach this? So in hair cutting, you can cut hair in the comb, on the skin, in the fingers, right? So you can cut on the outside of the fingers, or you can cut on the inside of the fingers. So if I choose to cut this on the inside of the fingers, right, the natural swing of my arm isn't to actually pull the hair up. See, I actually have to move my body to do that. The natural swing of my arm on the inside of my fingers is to pull down. So I'm naturally going to want to pull this hair down. So remember, layering is a removal of weight. It cuts at 90 degrees or higher. So this isn't a natural position. I'm always going to want to pull it down. So if I take this hair and I pull that hair up like this, naturally, I'm going to start to do this. And if I do that, I'm going to pull this and leave this longer than what this is. Haircutting is really simple. You pull away from what you want to keep. So if I pull that down, I'm going to keep the weight in the crown. This is layering, it's not graduation, right? Graduation leaves the weight at the top. Layering removes the weight. So I'll actually cut this on the outside of my fingers because of the elevation aspect, like so. So now the natural swing of my arm is to lift up. So understanding what your body's going to naturally want to do and what it doesn't want to do. And you can utilize that to help you. So I use the length at the occipital ridge as the guide, and I pull this out 90 degrees. And so that is now my guide, and I'm going to cut a line that follows the contour of the head shape. So I'm going to vertically follow the head shape. So if I cut a layer that follows the vertical contour of the head shape, that means that it's convex. So that's the kind of layer that I'm cutting right now. I'm not making it a full convex underneath the head shape because I want to protect that. So the lower I get the guide, the more weight I take out. The higher I get the guide, the less weight I take out, excuse me. So what this has done now is right at the natural round of the head where that occipital ridge is, it's created a corner. So there's my corner. That corner is the strength of my outline. So the higher I get my guide, the bigger that corner is. The lower I get it, the lighter it is, and the more weight I'm taking out. So in this case, I'm using the occipital because I want to keep this outline consistent all the way through the front. Cool? Am I doing it right, Katie? No. Section number 2. So it's vertical, it's straight up and down. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to over-direct backwards. But where am I going to over-direct to? Do I pull everything into number 1? I can do. That's the most amount of over-direction I can use, right? So that's the heaviest it's going to move from back to front. So that's basically the Karen-ometer, right? The amount of over-direction basically makes her a Karen or not, right? So if I bring everything into the middle, then she's definitely in Karen territory, right? For you guys not from the States, it's that really aggressive triangular shape. In the States, it's called the Karen haircut. Nothing to do with politics, just haircut, okay? So that's the most amount of over-direction I can use by pulling everything into number 1. The least amount of over-direction is if I just pull everything into my previous. So 2 goes into 1, then 2 comes straight out from the head, 3 goes into 2, then 3 comes straight out from the head, and 4 goes into 3, and so on and so on. Yes, it's going to gradually get longer and heavier towards the front, right? But it'll also take me past these corners. And those corners are the key thing within this haircut and keeping the consistency of the outline all the way through. So literally, I have this window of opportunity. I can do what I want from middle to the corners. I then have to pull everything back to the corners, right? But what that's going to do for me is, by following the head shape and then stopping at the round of the head and then pulling back, what's going to happen is those layers are actually going to smile. They're going to move up. And then because of the over-direction back, they're going to drop. So they're going to smile and then drop. That's not good. That's not fluid or consistent, right? That's something that I would look at and I'd say that doesn't look right. So I need it to be really consistent from back to front. To get that, I need to pull everything straight back to the wall behind the mannequin. So literally every single section, look, come on, stand over here. Every section, guys, is going to go straight back towards you. So everything that reaches back within that elevation. If I bring it to the middle, drops off too heavy. If I follow the head shape and then pull back, it smiles at me and then drops. I want something that's all beautiful and consistent from back to front. So pull straight back, that's going to get me that.
We have a question about the corner and the length.
Yeah.
What would happen if you cut it off,
If I cut what off?
the corner?
Oh, if I cut the corner off, then I start to lose the consistency and weight within my outline, all right? And I also will lose it through here. That's the whole point of us pulling back behind this corner and keeping that corner there is so that we actually maintain this through. So don't cut the corner off just because you've been told to cut corners off, right? The corner is there for a reason. It's the strength of my outline. So if I take that corner off, then you don't have any strength on your outline and you become very weak, all right? So good question. So my over direction is straight back behind the mannequin. I'm going to do that over here so you guys can see that on the head-on camera. Combing the side of the section that's about to be cut, not what's already been cut, and there's my guide. So I'm using that length as the guide, and I'm cutting a layer that follows the natural contour of the head shape. So by doing that, I'm now starting to see some dimension in the back, but I can still see and keep the strength of that outline. If I take that corner off, that's that corner that gets taken off, guys. So it turns more into a graduation. Continuing with vertical sections, straight up, straight down sections. Anytime you take a vertical section, you will always have a tendency to remove weight. If you take horizontal sections, you'll always have a tendency to build weight. So I get rid of number 1, and I take number 2 and number 3, and I send them straight back towards you guys on the camera there. So now I'm starting to move into the sides of the head shape. So what's happening now is I have a stationary guideline. See, the back end's right there at the corner, the natural round of the head shape. So that's where that corner of the hairline is. So now what's happening is that hair at the round of the head is now my guide for anything in front of it. So it's actually a stationary guideline now. So all I'm going to do is just send this hair back to that wall behind the mannequin. If you don't have a wall behind the mannequin, pretend there's one there. I always pretend I'm stood in a box. Even if I was in a circle, I'm stood in a box, and that's what's going to help me create a haircut. Because that's what haircuts are. They're just weird shaped boxes. They're three-dimensional objects that you've manipulated into a shape. So everything straight back, not to the center, just straight back. And that means I've just run out of hair when I've reached that point. So I've established my length and I've layered using my length and I've protected the length. So this is the exercise of layering while protecting your outline. Because anytime you layer it, you remove weight. So it's very easy to lose this. And that's why I probably would say if you're not very strong at layering is go with the layer first and do your outline afterwards. But with this, it gives me strength, and now I can control it. So now let's do the other side.
We have a question.
Yeah.
Is it the outline that makes this a triangular shape?
No. The outline right now is just what people would call square. It's level. It doesn't drop towards the front or the back or anything. What makes this triangular is me pulling the hair backwards. What that's meaning is it's shorter through the center back and it's getting longer and longer towards the front. So the drop and balance of weight is doing that. That's what's known as triangular in haircutting. So just like your graduated bob haircut, that's a triangular haircut. Your layered bob, that's a triangular haircut. And if you think about what I'm doing is I'm just doing a longer version than a layered bob. And remember, a bob is an uninterrupted line from front to back, back to front, so therefore a bob is always above the shoulders. So, same body position, I'm not going to switch sides. I'd rather work uphill so I can control the line instead of working downhill and most likely concaving it. So knowing what's going to happen based on body position, that is huge to me. So I can't see my guide there. So what that tells me is the hair that I'm cutting, it's too big, the section's too large. Now, what can happen there is I can use unnecessary over-direction. So the size of the sections is really important. And I always tend to keep the size of the section the same width as one of the fingers that you use to control the haircut. So about that thickness for me. And now I can see it. I can actually feel that guide there now too. Next section, same thing. Now, I was talking about which side of the section to comb, and it's really important that I comb what I'm about to cut, and I don't comb the guide side. If I comb the guide, what happens if you look over on the top view, if I comb the guide, it pushes the guide towards what you're going to cut. And if you do that, then it makes what you're going to cut actually shorter than the guide because you've just moved the guide off its base. So therefore, it becomes shorter and not longer. That to me is a major mistake to make. So my feet are parallel to what I'm cutting or where I'm directing the hair to. So I'm sending the hair back that way. So my feet are literally in that motion. I don't want to move my right foot. If I move my right foot, it changes where I direct the hair to. All right, so what's controlling my over direction right now is this leg, this foot. I'm right-handed, so it's my right foot that's taking care of that right now. And if I was working the other way, I was working top to bottom, then it would be my left foot that would be controlling it. Hope you guys are enjoying this.
Lots of parts.
Thank
Lots
you.
of thank yous.
You're welcome. I think it's really important that you understand what does what, you know. One of the big things when I teach is I teach you the what if. You know, what if you did do it this way? What's going to happen? And that really, really helps you understand how to control the haircut. I think that's probably the number one question I've always been asked. What if?
Tammy said it's brilliant. The in-depth detail is missing in a lot of trainings that they have.
So you can see that I'm keeping the strength of that outline. So the lower I get the guide, the more that you lose this aspect of it. So that allows me to keep that. So I've reached the natural round of the head again. So I'm going to take that guide at the round of the head. And that's literally now stationary for these sections. Because this is this point of the corner of the head shape. So from this point forward, that's the side. From that point back, that's the back. So I can literally condense all of this if I want to. But again, I want to be able to see the guide. So it's important that I don't overly condense. But once you have a stationary guideline, that means you can condense. It means those sections can become thicker than the fingers because you're pulling it to one place. And you see, literally nothing reaches there. So that means I've protected my outline while I've layered it. So nice, classic, triangular layers right now. So with me using this as the guide through here, and I'm only really following the head shape from that point up, it's technically convex through here, but because it doesn't come through all the way through, it's going to fall into the concave world because I'm leaving that out of the way. So I'm lifting, and whatever drops out, drops out. So it's just like lifting the top up and the sides drop out. So it's shorter on the inside, longer towards the exterior. So this is a concave layer. And that's what enables me to keep all of that through there. So now I can continue, I can work through into the sides and then into the top. So section-wise, I need to isolate the top. I need to get rid of the top so that we don't cut any of that yet. So literally working from the crown. So I'm in the crown area, so I'm going to go top of the crown and I'm going to take a section that follows around. So literally following that top round of the head. So it's like a horseshoe section through the top. There we go. That's not good enough.
I have a couple questions. So,
Yes, please.
would cutting the corner throughout the outline turn it into a full convex layer, and then someone's confused because you called it convex earlier?
Yes, well, if you don't be confused based on the fact that I followed the head shape above the occipital ridge. So that is a convex line, isn't it? That's a convex line. So that's what I did, right? Now, the fact that I didn't go all the way through and continue and make every single strand of hair the same length all the way through, that would be a full convex layer, wouldn't it? So what that would do, if I cut that corner off, I'm going to say this one more time with the corner question. If I take the corner off, it takes the width away. So it takes that off it. So it makes it curve in, it makes it bevel in more, all right? It takes away more weight off of here. The fact that I let all that drop out keeps it in the concave world, all right? Because it doesn't follow that all the way through. And I was joking, I'll answer that corner question as many times as you need me to. It's quite the popular question because I feel that a lot of hairdressers tend to cookie cut things, and then some of the information that they got in school was like, oh, if you see the corner, cut the corner off. Doesn't make sense to me. Straight away, look at this. If I cut a corner off, it doesn't get rid of it. It actually multiplies. So all I would do is I would push that corner up here and down there if I cut it off. So I hope that answers your question slightly.
All right, and what's the difference between concave and convex?
Okay, so concave works against the curvature of the head shape. So a concave layer is literally like liposuction. It allows you to take the insides out and keep your exterior. Whereas convex is the fuller layer. So actually you will get more volume and more body from a convex layer than you would a concave layer. Most people don't convex layer, they'll concave layer all day long. Lift it up to the ceiling, that's concave. Now, if you want to see more about convex versus concave, go into my IGTV and you'll see from a few weeks back, I did convex layers on one side and concave on the other, so you could see the difference between the two. And there's also an image on my Instagram page where you can see the finished result and what each side looks versus each other. Not only on straight hair, but on curly hair as well. And that's in my IGTV. It's only a few weeks ago that we did that. And that explains convex versus concave. So I've sectioned the top away, horseshoe section, both sides. And now I'm going to connect my layering in. So I've already got my guide from the underneath that I've just established and from the back. So all I'm doing is now just connecting this in. So if you think about this, all I'm doing is I'm creating the walls of the room. I've not done anything with the ceiling or the roof yet. We'll do that afterwards. So right now I'm taking care of the vertical part of the haircut. So the walls of the haircut. My over direction, excuse me, will take care of how heavy it gets towards the front. So vertical, and now just joining on to what we already have. So there shouldn't be anything really back here other than a few little pieces right there. And now we'll just keep going and bringing everything back to the wall behind the mannequin. So body position extremely important. You'll notice how I'll move to comb and section the hair like so, but I have to make sure that I get back into position. I can't just think that, oh, I'll pull this back and it'll be even. I've just shifted my body into a completely different place, and now I'm facing over there instead of facing you. So I'll shift where I overdirect the hair to. So, you know, you might feel comfortable, it might feel it'll look great in the mirror, but you really need to get back into position so that you don't cut this wrong. It's pretty common sense, a lot of this. Doesn't have to be like rocket science. So all of this is coming back, and obviously the more I move forward, the less hair there's going to be cut because this is being pulled back further. And you can see this right down here is going to be my outline, and this is me layering above it. So I'm layering while protecting my outline. Again, it's a stationary guideline right at the natural round of the head, so I can afford to take larger sections if I want to, so I'm not wasting time.
Why not pivot off of the crown and pull back to the wall?
If I pivot, then I'm going to actually cut through this part of the head shape. I'll be working into the top. So to keep it in like panels of the underneath, this round of the head, and then the top, I need to section this way. If I pivot, then I will cut through the top. All right, so I don't want to do that yet. It's all about protecting this outline. So just keeping my sections vertical up and down. If I was to pivot, then I'm actually going to keep going through, and I'll be working diagonal sections and vertical and then horizontal. So there's quite a lot to work with. So if I was to pivot, then I could use an over direction slightly back into my previous. But it's very difficult to pivot and to pull back to a wall. So it's pretty much impossible because you'll cut through the top. So now that's done, just going to give it, did I do both sides? I don't think I did I? No. Let's do both sides. I did that last week, didn't I? I left out a panel here in the back of my haircut and no one said anything. It's great.
You got a lot of hearts for that.
Happens to the best of us, doesn't it? So again, just joining that on. So you can see that line curves, it follows the head shape. It's not a flat line like so. So if I cut a flat layer, that's more aggressively concave. So it leaves heavier pieces in the crown. So when that falls, it makes this flick too much. All right, so that's what I'm trying to avoid. I want something that's going to be nice and blended. So if we did blow dry this nice and smooth, it will have that nice curvature and then stop at the length. Now, I'm working on a wavier texture of hair, which seems to be the most dominant texture that people are working with nowadays and keeping, and not blowing that hair out. So what you see is you see that beachier wave texture, but now you see more of an expanded outline. If you blow dry this smooth, it doesn't stick out like so. Obviously, it's going to turn in. So again, bringing everything straight back that reaches, and you can see this being protected, and it's just above it that's being layered. So I'm definitely layering all the way through to the front. But by using the occipital as my guide to begin with, it's putting them in the right places. Could I work through without using any over direction? Yes, I could. And I'd still keep the length through here. I wouldn't keep it as heavy because I've pulled back. So if I was to just follow the head shape all the way through, I'd protect the length down here, but it'd definitely be lighter through here than it would here. So that's my underneath. Let's give it a cross check. So cross-checking is to check the opposite dimension. So really what I'm going to check now is I'm going to check the over direction. So I'm going to check how much I pulled the hair backwards or forwards. Well, I didn't pull it forwards in this case, so that's not what we're looking at. So I take a horizontal section and I pull the hair at the same elevation and I pull it to where it was cut. And I look at that line and it matches that wall back there.
Perfect.
So if I would have brought the hair into the middle, this line that we see, guys, would actually get longer and longer towards here. So it'd be more angled like so. And if I didn't over direct at all, then that line would follow the head shape through. So I've used the room, the box that I'm in, to help me establish that. So now that I know that that is clean and even, both sides, nice and even, nice and clean, I can move on to the top. All right, so the top. Right now, I've made this central. So if this person was going to wear a middle parting, center parting, then I would just make this symmetrical through the top. So what I would do is I would use this as my guide to cut the top now. Go to the side view, Dawn, the front view, sorry. That's the one. So this now, what I just cross-checked, that is the top of what I've just cut. So that's actually my guide for everything else through the top now. I would take vertical sections and I'd pull everything straight back onto this. Then it's going to be even with a middle parting, all right? That's the easy way. What if someone has a side parting? Most people do. Unless you're working the curtain bangs through the front now or that kind of heavy bang, it's not really working through the center. Most people have a nice side parting to take that away from it. So I will do the balance with the side parting for you guys, just to show you what you would need to do. Again, if you want to work with the middle parting, it's very simple. You're going to pull everything back onto that, and it's the same on both sides. But when you work with a side parting, it's not the same on both sides, because the hair doesn't live the same way now. It doesn't fall from the top of the head. It's now falling from somewhere that's below the top of the head. So let's get that in there. Yeah, should I do that? I should do side, shouldn't I? Yeah, side's always fun. So about mid-brow, we'll go with a side from there. So here she is. This is how she wears her hair. She wears a nice, it's a bit far over that one. That's a deep side parting. We're just going to go with a regular side parting. There we go. That'll be better. That look better? You're my mirror. All right, so side parting. So if you cut this evenly, oh, don't you dare. All right, take two. So if you cut evenly with a side parting, so if I cut this exactly the same length, this is what happens. Look at this side, it's all the way up here, and then this side's all the way down there, isn't it? That to me is not balanced. It's very uneven. But we see this a lot because people cut with central partings and then the person doesn't wear it in the middle and they flip-flop all over the place. So you have to be realistic with this and you have to, be very honest with your clients. If it's cut in the middle, it's only balanced to the middle. If it's cut to the side, it's only balanced to the side. That's it. So, if this person is a side parting wearer and she wants it to be even, which I do as the hairstylist, I don't want a haircut to walk out and it be layers like so. She shouldn't look like she's performing the 5 o'clock news. Every newscaster's got uneven layers because they flip-flop all the time. So here's what needs to happen. So if you look at where the parting is, it's over here on the side. This is the symmetrical center of the head shape, right? Right down the middle. This is the top, right? So from here, the head shape works down. From here, the head shape works down. So what's happening is this hair right here is traveling a further distance than anything else on the head shape, on this top. So that right there is how much longer this side needs to be than that side, because that's how much further it travels over the head shape. So I need to make this side that much longer than this side. Does that make sense? So that's what I'm going to do. So I've told you what needs to happen. Now I'll show you how to do that. So this will be the heavier side because it travels over a further distance. This will be the lighter side. So I'm going to start with the heavy side. I'm going to start right back here in the crown. Let's go this way so you can see it. Yeah, that one's better, Dawn. So let's get the guide from the underneath, the crown, right? And right like where I was cross-checking, that's going to be the guide. So I'm going to look for that. And I see it. Let's see. See, that's the guide right there. And I'm going to pull this into that. So it comes back onto it. There's the guide. So you can see that right there to there. That's it. So I'm placing that on top of the underneath and cutting that onto it. Combing back onto the crown. So that is the guide now for every other section, or every section. So if you want, guys, get one of your clips and just clip that away so you don't pull the hair too far back now. And just like you guys can see this, where you are is where I put the mirror, so I can see exactly where that's being pulled back to. I wouldn't have the mirror right in front of the client at this stage. I'd have it more at the side here, so I can see my over direction. If I have the mirror right in front, I can't see how much I'm over directing. All I can see is what I look like, right? I'm not bothered about that. We're bothered about the haircut. So the next section, same thing. It's a stationary guideline, so my sections can be a little thicker than normal. But again, that's always going to be determined by the density of the hair. And there's my guide. I'm pulling it back onto the crown. And yes, I just cut past the second knuckle. Next section. So I don't do it all. I work it in sections through the top, so it's not all at once. And that allows me to get the hair nice and clean from roots to ends to the guide. Starting to run out of hair. So you can see, guys, all of this is coming back into that crown. So that's maximum over direction. Everything's come to the same spot. So that is the heaviest it can be. That's like me pulling everything into number one. That's the heaviest this could ever be. Me pulling everything into number one, here's the heaviest that could go. So I comb that down now. Let's get rid of this clip. I don't need that. And I can see that, I've yet to do my outline through here as well, but I know that I've kept the density and weight in this area. So now let's do the other side. See now guys, looking at that head on, that's falling in a certain area. So now I need this side to do the same thing. I don't want this side to fall heavier or fall lighter. If I cut it the same length as this side, then it's actually going to fall heavier. So what that means is, on this side, I need to use less over direction backwards. So on the heavy side, use the maximum over direction. Now on this side, I can use less. So I'll use my crown as the guide again, just like the previous side, because we need this to be even in the back. We don't want that to be uneven. So that will be the same. So pulling back onto the crown, there's my guide. It matches in with the other side. So now is where it changes. So now I get rid of the heavy side. And now what I do is I get rid of that previous section that I'd just done. And I'll now use this as a guide for the next section. So my guide on this side is going to travel. It's going to move through this side. So you can see now that my elevation changes there, because I'm pulling back onto my previous. So now I split these two, and now this is the guide for the next section. Now remember, keep your sections the same thickness of your fingers so that you're not using unnecessary over direction. So if I take a larger section than I did previously, then that's going to affect parting and the balance of it. So now onto the previous section. So you can see now on that profile shot that you guys can see, guys, how my over direction is completely different to the other side. The other side was coming all the way back here to the crown. So now I'm just traveling through on this side. So somebody asked me the question, how would you do this on round layers? It'd be the same thing, but you start from the front. So one side maximum, one side less over direction. So I've done this all the way through from crown to apex. So the next major round in the head shape. The apex is the top of the head. So from the apex forward, the head shape completely changes terrain again. It goes in a different angle now. So it's like I'm working up to the top of the hill, and then now we're going over the hill. Now, because of that, the head curvature like this, not only this way, also through here as well. The head shape curves in this way. So it's the same all the way through here with the head shape. So what I'll do is I'll actually use over direction back to this point now, to the apex, just so that I don't lose any of that weight through the front and I don't face frame it. So coming back to the apex. If it's too heavy, I can always come back through and take more weight out. So I'm doing this as a safety. So I'm bringing back to the apex. So let's just go to this point again, and let's have a look at the difference now. Let's see what's happening. So you can see this side, and you can see that side. That's about the same distance from the center to the parting, isn't it? So now when I pull that over there, these layers fall at the same spot on both sides. So that is balancing the parting all the way through, from back to front. So I hope you guys enjoyed that one. I always really enjoy teaching that. And this haircut to me is pretty versatile as far as length's concerned. I chose to show you a longer version of this. For those clients that like their hair in that collarbone area, and they like to keep the consistency of the bob, or in that case, extremely long bob broken up by the shoulders. So if you were to do this shorter, you would do it the exact same way. And if you were going to do it longer, you would do it the exact same way. The key points to this haircut is that length at the occipital. So once you put your outline length in, the length at the O-bone is going to be the length for your layers. And what that will do is that will protect your length all the way through, regardless of whether you pull the hair backwards or not. That's going to keep it there, because that's the highest point of the hairline. So the only last thing that I'm going to do now is to join the length in the front to it now. So just allowing that hair to fall naturally, controlling it with the comb, loosening any excess tension. So if I wanted the outline to be A-line, which is triangular, then I would just change the angle. Any questions?
No,
No?
but everyone loves it.
What they're saying,
All right. Well, I had loads of fun with you guys. Thanks for tuning in on YouTube and on Instagram.
Some people are on both.
Some people are on both, even better. That's cool. Thank you for subscribing to my channel too. So hit the subscribe button, hit the bell button so you get notifications on when we go live on YouTube, and that helps to support our channel. And yeah, we appreciate any help that we get and support from you guys. We'll be back next week on Monday as well for another KDF Live. I'm going to have a special guest come in and cut hair with us next week. I'm not going to tell you who it is. You'll just have to tune in and see who it is. And yeah, we'll be back with the girls too. Kelly will be back, and so that those guys can cut hair for you guys as well, so you can see all the other stuff that we do as well. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. And if you have any questions about anything, feel free to comment below and all that good stuff, and we'll get back to you on that. And have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time. And don't forget, sign up for my theory class coming up on March 15th. Hit the link in my bio. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Katie.
I thought it was great.
Did you end it?
No, but I didn't know if you wanted
Just
me to.
end.
Yeah.